Hey guys, welcome back to the channel and thanks so much for tuning in to what's going to be a pretty highly requested video for this channel. It's all about setting powders, and I have to admit it took me a while to do this first because I am definitely a sucker for color and sparkle. I will always veer towards things that catch my eye first, and for me, setting powder just isn't one of those things. When I first started dipping my toe into the existing setting powders, my collection, I was a little bored, a little underwhelmed, but a few of you guys gave me some suggestions that totally changed the setting powder game, some for better, some for worse, and it made me appreciate and realize the nuanced or sometimes major differences between each of these. So with that, we got a lot of ground to cover in this video. Let's go ahead and get started. Oh, also, side note, for those of you who have asked me what's up with my makeup in the past like 3 to 5 videos, my face has been a testing ground for all of these powders, both new and those that I'm revisiting in my collection. So it's been a real eye-opener to understand how they perform on camera and as a result how you guys react to seeing them on camera. So let's go ahead and get started. I kind of fussed around with how to organize these into categories because there are lots of kind of weird hybrids out there. So let's start with kind of where it all started, I guess. When I first got into the makeup game here on YouTube, the cult classic was the Makeup Forever High Def Setting Powder. Now it used to come in a packaging where it was loose like this. They no longer make this, and now it is called the Makeup Forever Micro Finish Powder. It is the same thing, I believe, for the most part. The only difference, and one that is for the better, I think, is that it comes with this mesh here, so just a little bit comes out at a time, and then you can see it has this raised stopper to keep your powder from going hog wild, because as you can see in this guy, once it gets above the sifter, there's no getting it out. It's just a massive mess, and so this is a little bit more mess and fuss free. So the Micro Finish powder is in a category of powders that can set your overall makeup if you want to extend the wear. It can wick away excess oil if you have oily skin like me, you want to put it in your T-zone to prevent your skin from developing excess dew throughout the day. You can put it in your under eye area to help brighten your under eyes. Now I feel like this became famous not only because your average makeup user and makeup artist alike were talking about it a lot here on YouTube, but makeup artists were also using it on celebrities, and it became most apparent when you saw them with a flash. And you'd see these big white rings in their under eye area because even though in normal light it would look totally fine, it would make their under eyes look a little bit more luminous, a little bit brighter because it has a little bit of a white cast. That same white cast would be super reflective under a flash bulb, and it would give you that ghostly white cast. And then it came out later that the makeup artist was using a translucent setting powder or this Makeup Forever HD setting powder specifically. None of that is to say it's a bad formula, a bad product. It's just to say that that is what heightened the visibility of a product like setting powder, translucent setting powder to be exact. So this is kind of its own category. I have 2 to 3 others here that I'm going to talk about in the same vein, but I thought I'd talk about this one because it is kind of the most well-known in my mind, at least. So this Makeup Forever powder has an ultra fine consistency. Every time I open it, I'm not sure if you can see that here, maybe as I get it closer you will be able to, it kicks up a lot of product, just ultra fine, not that gets over your clothes, it's just a super fine dust that kind of billows out everywhere. It's milled, ultra fine. It's one of the finest I own, and as a result, it's kind of harder to layer up and really bake with it. For me personally, it sinks into fine lines, not in a bad way, in kind of a line blurring sort of way. So it really disappears into the skin without being super drying, but it definitely lightens the appearance of the concealer or foundation or whatever it is you have going on in your under eye area or whatever base you lay it over. It's just gonna lighten it up a little bit. It certainly is functional for me as a setting powder. I do notice a little bit of the blurring abilities that it has, but it is going to lighten up your foundation. As far as functionality goes, I do think this does a really nice job at setting your makeup, keeping dewiness at bay if you have combo skin, blurring the fine lines in your under eye area, but just beware, it still does have that white cast. In fact, of the 3 kind of white cast setting powders I'm going to talk about today, this is about the middle, and it's by no means the worst. I'll talk about that one later, but you're definitely going to get a little bit of a kickback if you use or are planning on being in front of flash photography. Next up in the way way of translucent setting powders is the Dermablend Professional Setting Powder. This you get a ton of product, so this is 28 grams of product for $27 versus the Makeup Forever, which is 8.5 grams of product for $30, and then the other one I'm talking about is astronomical compared to both of those. So definitely a good bargain in the way of setting powders, not quite as finely milled as the Makeup Forever, so I find it does less in the way of pore blurring, but it still does a really good job at setting all over, especially for me. Like I said before, the T-zone, I have a hair in my mouth. Ugh, hopefully, oh, so we have a lipstick smudge? I hope not. Oh. And it also tackles under eye setting without sinking into fine lines, but you still run into the same issue of it kind of tinting or lightening whatever base you are wearing. This has the least amount of flashback, so if you are looking for that under eye setting that gives you a little bit of extra brightening under there and you want to go with this, but you know you're going to be, you just never know when you're going to be in front of flash photography, this would be the best one to go with just because it definitely behaves the best. It's also going to give you the most bang for your buck because this Dallas. It's also going to give you the most bang for your buck because this guy is huge, unlike the powder that I'm about to talk about, which is actually one that someone asked that I talk about, so I'm glad I did. Hopefully it helps people who might have had questions about it because it ain't cheap. This is the By Terry Hyaluronic Hydra powder, and it retails for $60 for 10 grams. So I had super high hopes for this one because of the price. It has, my expectations are definitely higher, but also the hyaluronic in the name made me think that it was going to be very moisturizing or add an extra level of hydration. Great if you have dry skin and develop dry patchiness throughout the day, or if you develop under eye dryness and so you start seeing that crepiness and the fine lines as you wear your makeup throughout the day. I thought that's what this was going to get me, and it just didn't, no matter which way I tried it. So you're supposed to, the tip for this is you're supposed to rub it between your fingers or against your skin to kind of help take the powderiness away, make it more emollient, whatever. That's the tip. You're supposed to rub it against your skin and then press and pat in as you apply it. I did it that way. I used a brush. I used a little. I used a lot. This is certainly not a baking powder because just the teensiest little bit will give you white cast for days. Like, it doesn't only change and lighten up the base, but it gives you a noticeable, like, blown out white cast under most lighting, I would say. You guys noticed it in a video recently where you were like, something happened to your under eye area? Yes, it was this powder. Very, very unflattering, and so I can easily say that for this price tag, it is not worth it. I was too busy wiping excess powder. It's the weirdest thing, and granted, I think I applied too much this time, but I noticed having to wipe off excess throughout the day. It's like my makeup and skin absorbed it, and then just started kind of saying, thanks but no thanks throughout the day, and so I've just kept finding little deposits here and there that I have to wipe away progressively throughout the day. Weirdest thing, have never had it happen with the powder except for this one. So unless there is some magic trick that I would love to hear from you guys in the comments below, definitely let me know. But on one hand, I'd like to know, on the other, it's like, do I want to work that hard for a powder that's expensive? I just don't know. Bottom line is it's not for me, and so I can't really recommend it to you guys either, given that I have had better experiences with both the Makeup Forever and Dermablend. But of these three, I would still recommend the Dermablend. Last up is easily the cheapest high-def setting powder, but it is a little bit of a hybrid in that it has a tint to it. So this is the e.l.f. High Def Under Eye Setting Powder. A lot of you guys have probably heard, if not used it yourself. It retails for $3, so very reasonable. However, it has a very noticeable pinky lilac hue to it with very distinct glitter. Like, even as I'm looking at it now, the powder is kind of tinted lilac, but there are actual discernible glitter chunks in here. So right off the bat, that part is not for me. I definitely think if you have, so violet or lilac counteracts yellow. So if you have yellow sallowness in your under eye area or really anywhere in your complexion that you want to cancel out, something like this could help you. But I still, even for the price tag, just don't know that I would recommend this, especially for the under eye area, when other brands like Dermablend, I believe it's Dermablend, make tinted or color correcting powders explicitly for that purpose that don't have the glitter. So this again is another no for me. Moving on to another powder that kind of blurs the lines both literally and figuratively between all of these kind of powder categories. It's the IT Cosmetics Bye Bye Pores Translucent Poreless Finish Airbrush Powder. That's a mouthful. This retails for $24 for 6.8 grams, so somewhat comparable, but still on the more expensive side given the amount of product you get for the price. And its primary claim to fame is that it blurs pores, as the name suggests. It too is super finely milled, so I do find that of all of these that I talked about, including the Makeup Forever, it blurs pores the most, but a little of this goes a really long way. I learned this not only from experience, but after the fact I went on the website just to make sure that I had my facts right, was applying it correctly, and even they say, especially in the under eye area, they recommend using a small fluffy brush for very light application, because this was another one of those where, like the By Terry Hyaluronic powder, I would find it kind of like my skin would reject it and I'd have to wipe it off throughout the day. That could be helped when I used a little bit less, but on colder, drier days, I did notice it settling into fine lines a little bit more than any of these other powders, so I definitely don't think it's ideal for drier skin types. This, I think, would be good for someone who's looking to blur the lines, minimize the pores all over the face while setting the makeup, really buffing and blending it in to help extend the life of their makeup. And because it's slightly tinted, it's going to affect the color of your foundation, your concealer, whatever it is you're wearing underneath, a lot less than something like the Makeup Forever HD. Last up are truly translucent powders, and by that I mean not only are they not just, white silica powders, they are slightly creamy in shade, and so as I blend them out across my skin, wherever it is I'm applying them, I can really buff and blend them in so they look like second skin. They blend seamlessly into my base, whether it's foundation, concealer, whatever. This sets them, blends into them without changing the way they look, besides giving them an overall smoother appearance. First is the Laura Mercier Loose Setting Powder, and the other one is the Kat Von D Lock-It Setting Powder. This, if you've watched a favorites for the past couple months, this has been in it for ever since I got it, basically, for the last 4 to 5 months. But before that, the Laura Mercier was up there. What made me switch is that the Laura Mercier throughout the day emphasized my fine lines. It's not great for dry skin, and I don't have dry skin, but just in my under eye area, I found that with the least bit of change in weather or allergies or whatever it be, if I develop those fine lines in my under eye area, this Laura Mercier is going to emphasize it, whereas the Kat Von D just isn't for whatever reason. So basically the takeaway here is that these are two great powders for setting your foundation overall. You're not going to get a whole lot of brightening, but like any setting powder, they're going to help extend the life of your foundation or your concealer. They're going to help prevent excess shine. If you have combo skin, you apply it in your T-zone, both of these will do that. The major difference between the two is just that one is more attuned to dry skin, which is the Kat Von D, versus the Laura Mercier, which is going to be geared more toward oily to combo skin. And that's it for me today, guys. Those are all of the loose setting powders that I dove into for today's video. If you have any questions on those or on any others that I might not have mentioned here, please feel free to let me know, ask it in the comments below. Besides that, thank you guys so much for watching. Please don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already, and I will catch you in my next video. Bye, guys.